Okay, good morning, everyone. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Calling the roll for the Monday, October 24, 2022 Board of Control meeting. It is 11:03 a.m. We have Councilwoman Nan Baker. Councilman Dale Miller.
Here.
Trevor McAleer serving as alternate for Pernell Jones.
Here.
Melanie Say serving as alternate for Mike Dever. Mike Chambers serving as an alternate for Armin Budish.
Here.
Lee Tucker serving as an alternate for the fiscal officer. Here. Paul Porter.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Okay, thank you. Next on our agenda is the minutes from October 17th. I will make a motion to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Ms. Lee Tucker. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? The minutes are approved. Any public comment?
No public comment.
Let's move on to our first item.
Our first scheduled item is item number BC 2022-621, Department of Development submitting an RFP exemption, which will result in an award recommendation to Nottingham Spurk Design Associates Incorporated in the amount not to exceed $250,000 for implementation of NASA's patent portfolio and creation of a strategic development licensing plan focused on creating commercial economic development in Cuyahoga County, commencing upon contract signature of all parties for a period of 16 weeks, and recommending a contract with said RFP exemption.
Good morning. Anthony Stella with the Department of Development. As was just introduced, the Department of Development is requesting approval of a contract with Nottingham Spurk Design Associates for up to $250,000. This is a second phase of work that was previously done, and this will be for a period of 16 weeks. The previous phase was 8 weeks, and it brought a lot of good progress was made in identifying multiple patents which have licensing potential. So the goal of this project is to find some NASA patents. There exists quite a lot of NASA patents, and those are right in our backyard here, and try to match them up with companies in Cuyahoga County that can either create products from these patents or have processes that they can use within their manufacturing facilities. The first 8 weeks, Nottingham Spurk worked along with the county, Ohio Aerospace Institute Manufacturing Works, and they narrowed down quite a lengthy list of patents from NASA within that 8 weeks to about a dozen patents that each had potential matches within Cuyahoga County. Each of them had multiple matches within the county and potential for multiple different types of products that could be used with those patents. So again, this would be a 16-week phase. The first phase was 8 weeks. It would be up to $250,000.
Okay, Anthony, thank you. Mr. McAleer, please.
Anthony, you said a couple times up to 250,000. So how are we invoiced on what basis? Is it a set amount? What's how's that
The
work?
invoices come in as a set amount as progress occurs. So we don't disperse all the money all at once. So we always, for most of our contracts within the Department of Development, are always an up to amount.
But based on a weekly or biweekly, so we anticipate spending the 250. It's not
Correct.
that they have to meet certain milestones or anything based on that.
Yes,
right?
correct. We'd anticipate spending the $250,000.
Okay. And then what happens after the 16 weeks? So am I understanding that we only have 8 weeks left? Or 8 weeks of work was already done and there's going to be an additional 16 weeks? worth
That's
of work?
correct, an additional 16 weeks.
And do you anticipate a new contract coming after the 16 weeks, or is this it?
I don't anticipate another contract from the county after this 16 weeks. What we hope is that this would lead to a potential licensing agreement for a patent, and at that point, we'd be able to negotiate actually some money potentially returning into the Job Creation Fund.
Can you talk a little bit more about that? So if there was a licensing deal worked out for one of these patents, wouldn't that be between the person holding the, or NASA or whoever, because NASA holds these patents, correct?
That's correct, yes. NASA holds the patents.
Apologies.
Hey,
I
Paul.
just wanted to suggest that Mr. Nottingham might be able to go into more
Oh,
depth.
okay.
Yeah, I was going to call up John Nottingham, who is much more familiar with how these types of negotiations get discussed.
So Anthony, and maybe it's more for him, but if NASA holds the patent,
That's
how does then the Economic Development Fund get money back then? I mean, how would the fund benefit from that? Just out of, I mean, I get the benefit of why we would want to.
right. So as any work that occurred, if there's a licensing agreement that occurs due to this work that we were a part of, then we can become a part of that negotiation at that time. I don't know how the specifics would work, but John Nottingham would be a lot more familiar with that.
So are you saying NASA would be willing, if something comes out from one of these licensing deals, NASA would be willing to give a percentage of that back to the county for the work that we were a part of? Or I'm just trying to figure out how the county would see a direct financial benefit from the
Right, and
Economic
that,
Development Fund.
the benefit is a potential, and I don't know the specifics of how that would play out. I just know that that's a potential that can happen. John Nottingham could probably speak to those details a lot better.
Yeah, please.
He's much more familiar with that than I am.
So, I'm John Nottingham. I'm co-CEO of Nottingham Spur. And so our intention is, we have about 12 patents. We are going to identify, we're going to validate those 12 patents, and then we're going to boil them down into a presentation for potential licensees. And the deal between a company, let's say in Cuyahoga County, to acquire that is a contract deal. And the way NASA patents work is they split the proceeds of a license between the inventor at NASA and NASA itself. Our intention is to do it 3 ways. To have a contract where the inventor benefits, NASA benefits, and Cuyahoga County benefits. And our intention is to have a sustainable income to Cuyahoga County to start to anticipate and commercialize technologies developed at NASA, but create businesses, jobs, and economic value.
Which I think that's great, and I hope this works. I'm struggling to see if NASA would agree to, instead of breaking it up 2 ways between them and the inventor at NASA, why would they then say, okay, Cuyahoga County, we'll give you a share of that as well? It seems like they would just want to keep it 2 ways, where we get the other benefits, but,
yeah.
I mean, do we know if NASA's willing to
Well,
split it 3?
that was our proposal. In fact, we have a meeting coming up with Glenn at our facility, and part of it is they want to get their track record of monetizing patents has not been great.
Right.
And we want to give them, sponsored by the county, an access to more commercialization. And for that, we are going to suggest the county benefit also.
Do we know what percentage we're going to be asking for?
My suggestion is a third, a third, a third.
Okay.
So if there's a 6% royalty, each one gets 2%.
Thank you.
Or some number, if it's 3%, you know how the math works.
Right. Good luck.
Thank you.
Additional questions from the board? Councilwoman, or please?
How much was invested in the first phase?
It was 125,000.
So 125. Okay, so we have 375,000 now invested in this.
Correct.
Okay, and I heard you say that this is probably the most we'll have to invest. At this point, we feel that we've accomplished what we needed to bring it to the,
Yes.
okay. I do think that, even in my earlier days of visiting with NASA and all that they do struggle getting it to the market. There's no question about that. So this is a rather interesting proposal that we are trying to take what they do and invest it in their inventors and bring them to the market. I think I hope you're successful. That would be a win for us.
Well, let me just tell you that all U.S. patents, only 5% ever get commercialized. If you look it up, you'll see it's only 5%. Nottingham Spurk has created about 1,400 patents, and because of our process, 95% have been commercialized. So that's the difference.
I guess I would think there's a lot to this that we're probably not digging into the weeds of all of it. On the surface, it looks promising. I don't know, I think this is a leap, but I know, like I said, patents, what NASA has done has been, wow, what they've really been able to do, but they can't seem to get it to the market. So I do see the dots connecting there. I would, pardon?
Said you ever met a rocket scientist?
That's exactly right.
Exactly.
It's an academia environment, and it is not a commercial environment, and I know they struggle with it. We're approving a contract of $250,000 when we don't really know for sure that we're going to get any percentage, right? I mean, that's another leap. They could
True.
come back to you and say, nope, we're controlling this, and you're not going to have any percentage. At what point, what do you do? Do you continue and just say, we tried, but we think this is still worth the initiative?
Well, no, I think our intention is to get something commercialized.
But with no return for the county?
No, with return for the county.
Well, yeah, but right now you don't have it.
Well, we think we have pretty good potential.
And if that potential falls apart, what do you do?
We will make a report, but I think our intention is to have success.
Yeah, well, I know, we all have, we all have that goal. I guess I would ask that we find out, how long of a time frame do you anticipate you will have that answer back? And what percentage you think you'll get?
Well, in 16 weeks, we will have a report back as to the companies we've identified and presented to,
Okay.
and what their response is.
I think it's a big enough project that we should have the Economic Development Committee really chime in on this, but not for any delay for today. But it sounds like this could really be quite a project, quite a return on investment if it goes well. But taking patents from NASA and trying to get them to the marketplace could just be the beginning of a pretty good relationship that could evolve.
Absolutely. Look at what an economic driver Glenn has been for Cuyahoga County. But if we can have that intersection of real commercialization, and real
Right.
economic value in jobs and business, we think it's really worth the activity.
Yeah, all right. I would ask that we have follow-up, but
Sure, I think you can ask Paul to, come and report in
Yes.
one of the committees. Sure,
Okay,
he'll be
good.
happy to. Mr. Mackler?
John or Anthony, are there any examples where NASA has agreed to give another entity a third throughout the country? Is there?
We're not aware of that, but again, it's a contract issue. It's not, they're gonna get a negotiated percentage where they split it between the inventor and NASA. If we are the agent, Cuyahoga County is the agent that promulgated this and made this happen, there's many examples, and we've done many examples of co-licensing, that they get their percentage and then some other entity like Cuyahoga County gets a percentage. We've negotiated hundreds of license deals, and there's precedent for that.
But ultimately, NASA would have to agree to that, though, right?
They would have, again, let me give the example. On a 6% royalty, they'll get 4%. That's their negotiated piece. And we're going to negotiate another 2% for Cuyahoga County. Again, it's a contract issue.
Yeah, I just think the county could benefit in other ways. I think it might be worth, or it's definitely worth the attempt. I'm not so sure we're going to be getting return on our economic development fund.
Well,
That's where.
It's certainly our intention, but you're right. If we can negotiate a business in Cuyahoga County to commercialize one of their patents and create jobs and economic value, certainly Cuyahoga County wins.
And Anthony, or Paul, this is coming out of the county executive's ARPA discretionary
That's correct.
fund? Okay.
Are there any final comments, questions, Councilman?
Yes, I'll have one follow-up question, which is, at what point in time do you expect there to be a tentative agreement if this is going to happen on a contract mechanism?
We will certainly have, I mean, will the contract be 100% negotiated by that time? It may or may not, but at least we will know the interest that companies have, because part of this 16 weeks is to be validating and putting together the presentations. And we will have the results of those presentations and the feedback by then.
So do you think by the end of the 16 weeks that you'll know whether there's an agreement in concept on the 1/3, 1/3, 1/3 split that you have in mind?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
So what is the price tag generally of a patent? What are we anticipating?
It depends on the value of the patent and negotiated. It tends to be somewhere between 1% and 6%, I would say 6% of net sales of the value added to the product.
Okay, so it's not an upfront.
Not typically.
Oh,
It's
okay.
usually a percentage of sales.
Okay,
So if they sell $1 million worth of something,
right,
that's 6%, $60,000.
I see. And does that go on forever?
It depends on well, in this case, it's probably the life of the patent.
Okay,
And for that reason, one of the funneling areas that we looked at is we looked at patents that have a 10-year horizon or longer. As you probably know, there's a 20-year life to patents. We didn't want to license something that only has 3 years left.
okay. And the type of businesses, typically, I know they're off, but is it mostly, are you looking at large manufacturing companies?
Yes. Yeah,
That's where-
large or small manufacturing
Okay.
companies. But that could take this and actually commercialize these products.
Well, manufacturing is your targeted business
Correct.
type of?
Yeah.
Okay, sounds fascinating.
Mr. Mackler, more?
Are the 10 or 12 patents that you plan on focusing on, are those already selected?
Yes.
Or can we share those with the board?
Sure. So some of them are coatings, which Glenn has an expertise in that. There's one for extending RFID technology. There's, Laura, help me out.
Around energy and
There's some medical.
yes.
Yeah, there's a
Two
medical and then there's one for liquid flow, which is very interesting. So some really cool technology that's been bottled up in NASA, that if they just stay bottled up, after 20 years, they're gone.
Make a difference.
Final questions? Seeing none, I'll make a motion to approve the item. Is there a second? seconded by Mr. Mackler. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? The item is approved. Next item.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Good luck.
Next item,
If,
B,
for that, just in 16 weeks or so, I mean, if we could have at least even development come back here, and then potentially an economic development committee, that would be.
Would you rather go to committee or here, or both?
I would talk to the chair of the Economic Development Committee, see if he has an interest in knowing more about this, if he feels, yeah. So either way, whatever.
We'll put it in Paul's hands then. How's that? Okay, great. Thanks.
BC 2022-622, corrected to read, Treasurer's Office submitting an amendment to contract with Automated Business Equipment Corporation, DBA F&E Payment Pros, formerly known as F&E Check Protector Company, DBA F&E Payment Pros, for licensing, support, training, and maintenance services on the digital remittance processing system for the period October 1st, 2014 to September 30th, 2022, to extend the time period to September 30th, 2023, and for additional funds in the amount not to exceed $28,465.00.
This is a contract amendment for Treasury with Automated Business Equipment. Treasury uses its services to scan their checks and create an image letter, which is then sent over to the bank for deposit. This amendment is also adding maintenance for the kiosk machines. The funding is general fund.
And that's Dominique Tate.
Dominique Tatum,
Yep.
Fiscal Office.
Thank you, Dominique. Are there questions from the board? Mr. Mackler, please.
Dominic, is this a sole source, or is this the only vendor that can provide the service? And we've been with them another year. After this, it'll be 10 years.
Yeah, the goal next year is to bid it out. Just because Treasury had a large turnover and they lost their buyers, we didn't have time to bid the contract out. So we do plan on bidding it out next year.
So there are other vendors that provide the service?
We're going to check to see if we can find others.
Additional questions? Seeing none, I'll make a motion to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Porter. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? The item is approved. Next item.
Next item, BC 2022-623, Department of Information Technology submitting an RFP exemption, which will result in an award recommendation to Integrated Precision Systems Incorporated in the amount not to exceed $21,065.42 for a state contract purchase of equipment, installation, and programming services for 8 surveillance cameras and a network video recorder to be used at the Soldiers and Sailors Monument, and recommending a purchase order with said RFP exemption.
Good morning, Janelle Green, Department of IT. This is a purchase order with Integrated Precision Systems to upgrade the surveillance equipment over at the Soldiers and Sailors Monument. Once the implementation has been complete, it'll go into the inventory of items that we have that is managed by the Sheriff's Department.
Okay, thank you, Janelle. Questions from the board?
Why are we particularly updating this one?
For what I gather, it's quite old and outdated, so we needed to, bring them up into the newer technology, and the storage of data and things like that had to be upgraded in order to capture all the images that the cameras are recording.
Will we have other types of monuments surveilled and updated also? Or?
I don't think necessarily monuments, but there'll be other county properties that'll have likely upgrades that'll come.
Just wonder why we decided this one first. This had the least.
We've been doing a lot of different upgrades that's been happening over the course of the year, so I think this was just the next in line.
In line. Okay, thank you.
Okay, seeing no further questions, I will make a motion to approve the item. Is there a second? Seconded by Councilwoman Baker. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Item is approved. Next item.
Next item, BC 2022-624, Department of Information Technology submitting an RFP exemption, which will result in award recommendation to vCloud Tech Incorporated in the amount not to exceed $56,260.00 for Nitro Pro PDF productivity software licenses for the period October 29, 2022 to October 28, 2023, for the renewal of 800 licenses, for the purchase of 200 new licenses, and recommending a purchase order with said RFP exemption.
Janelle Green, Department of IT. This exemption that we used for this was a cooperative purchase. This is the annual licensing that we obtained through the National Cooperative Purchasing Alliance, which is one of the exemption approvals that we are allowed to use. We do intend to bid this out next year in order to, see what else we can get from for these services. Nitro PDF productivity software is software that allows us to have the PDF editor application. So one of the questions that came up before, why do we have a PDF editor? A lot of times when we're working with a lot of documents, and sometimes you need to combine them, and sometimes we've had to literally in the past print all of them out and then scan them back in. This will allow us to combine documents together easier in order for us to increase productivity.
Thank you, Janelle. Questions from the board? Mr. Mackler?
Janelle, what's causing the need for the 200 new licenses? I get the renewal, but.
We brought in HHS.
And is any of that funded out of HHS, or is it all general fund?
Right now, it's all general fund. We'll likely charge back once we get done with their, they need an uplift because they've been using older licenses, so we wanted to bring them up to the newest suite.
Okay, seeing no further questions, I'll make the motion to approve the item. Is there a second? Second by Mr. Mackler. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? The item is approved. Can I do a quick thing here? Item 622, we amended the naming on it. I wrote it down, but I have it here. I just want to go back through and correct the record. I'm going to make a motion to approve item 622 as amended. We added some additional naming in there. Is there a second?
I'll second still.
You second it still, Mr. Porter. Thank you. All in favor as amended, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay, the item's approved as amended. Next item now. It was automated business and some additional things.
Automated Business Equipment Corporation, DBA F&E Payment Pros, formerly known as F&E Check Protector Company, DBA F&E Payment Pros.
I got the first two words down, that's why.
So next time, it'll just be Automated Business Equipment Corporation, DBA F&E Payment Pros.
Okay, good. I just wanted to correct that. All right, great. Next item then.
Next item, BC 2022-625, Department of Information Technology submitting an RFP exemption, which will result in award recommendation to SHI International Corporation in the amount not to exceed $20,375.27 for a state contract purchase of Rumble professional software licenses and recommending a purchase order with said RFP exemption.
Janelle Green, Department of IT. Rumble is a network discovery platform that actively scans the IT environments to deliver accurate asset inventory for teams who manage the potential attacks that try to come into our systems, and will allow us to increase our incident response. This has replaced a former system that we had, and so this will allow us to service the gaps.
Okay, questions? Seeing none, I'll make a motion to approve the item. Is there a second? Second by Councilman Miller. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? The item is approved. Next item.
Thank you.
Next item, BC 2022-626, Department of Human Resources submitting an amendment to a contract with Corporate Screening Services Incorporated for pre-employment background screening services for the period August 1st, 2019 through July 31st, 2022, to extend the time period to July 31st, 2023, and for additional funds in the amount not to exceed $30,000.
Stephen Witt with Human Resources. This is an amendment request for our contract for background screening with Corporate Screening Services. We've had Corporate Screening Services as our vendor for a few years, since 2019, and they've been a good partner. This year we conducted a RFP process to select a new vendor for the contract. During that RFP process, we found that Corporate Screening scored the highest on that RFP, so we moved to make an award to Corporate Screening. During that process, things dragged out as we learned that during the life of our contract, Corporate Screening had been acquired by a larger corporation, and that now they had a different legal team, and their legal team would not agree to the county's contract terms. We kept trying and we went around because they had been a good partner. I'll admit, we gave them a little too much leniency during the contract negotiation process, which ran us up to the contract deadline. As this contract expired, we ended negotiations with corporate screening as it became clear that we would not be able to contract with them, and moved on to the next highest scoring vendor, which that contract will be coming across the Board of Control at a later date as we work out negotiations with that company. In the interim, once it was clear that corporate screening would not negotiate with us any further, and before we started negotiating with the next vendor, we looked at some options in the interim as this contract was expiring, and we found that any vendor that we had gone with, we would have gone with in the interim, because these services are needed constantly as we are constantly hiring. We don't want to hold up the hiring process. We found that any new vendor would require extensive contract negotiations, because there's a lot of things that background check vendors require, like Fair Credit Reporting Act things, all kinds of insurance language. And so we determined that it would be prudent to just amend our contract with corporate screening while we worked out the contract with the new vendor. Corporate screening will only do a 12-month extension, which is why this runs through July of 2023. But in that contract is our standard provision for ending it within with 30 days notice, and we only pay for the services that we use. Interesting enough, they would agree to extend it at our current terms rather than using their new legal terms, which we cannot agree to.
Okay, thank you, Stephen. Questions from the board? Councilman?
Yes. What are the areas of legal dispute that prevent us from entering into a contract with the new legal team?
So one of the areas they will not agree to our standard indemnification clauses. Some of the reasons for that are they don't want to be beholden to providing background check information that omits information, and then we make a bad hire, and then we try and sue them. They won't agree to any of that, even though that's something that we wouldn't do. We know that when we do conduct a background check, if it's not in the background check, it's not there. Some of the other things
So
are...
if it's not something that we would do, why do we require the language?
From my understanding with the law department is that we legally cannot agree to indemnification. It's a standard thing that we go through when we contract. Maybe Jared from the law department can.
This is Jared Zabrotowski from the law department. I have not been involved in the negotiation of this one, but if in fact the vendor is asking the county to provide indemnification to them, that is something that we cannot provide under state law. We've only done it one time in the history of the county, and it involves setting aside money basically in a reserve account to cover a limited amount. So in the entire time I've been here, we've done it once. And even that it's not something that we like to do. It's not something that we would do in this case.
So are
it's a bad practice.
Are they requiring that we indemnify them under certain circumstances?
Like I just said, I'm not involved in this one. I don't know if that's what they're asking for, but if that is the case, I do agree that we would not enter into a contract, and we really can't, to provide indemnification to a vendor, because it's a constitutional issue. It's essentially extending the credit of a political subdivision of the state to a private party, and we can't do that.
Other issues with that are they won't agree to our standard contract terms. So standard contract resulting from an RFP is we include the RFP packet and their proposal, and they didn't want to include either of those documents, which means their entire proposal would not be included. So any of the services they offered, unless it was explicitly spelled out in the contract. So any optional things that we might want to do later, such as integrating with our Infor system, because that wouldn't be in the written contract, we would not be able to utilize those services, which kind of negates conducting the RFP process and receiving a quality proposal.
Sometimes I think there's too many lawyers.
Second that. Okay. Are there additional questions? Seeing none, then I will make a motion to approve the item. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Councilman Miller. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
opposed? The item is approved. Wasn't talking to you though, Jared. Next item.
Next item, BC 2022-627, Department of Human Resources, recommend an award and enter into a contract with the Metro Health System in the amount not to exceed $34,000 for flu shot clinic services for county employees effective upon contract signature of all parties through December 31st, 2022.
Stephen Witt with Human Resources. This is an annual program that we do with Metro Health, also known as Skyway, for flu shot clinics for county employees. They're held at various county buildings. The only change between last year and this year's agreements are that the cost per shot went up $1, which has been a trend over the last few years.
Okay, thank you, Stephen. Questions from the board?
Yes.
Please.
How much is the cost per shot?
The cost per shot this year is $34 per shot. Last year, we had 659 county employees participate, and we only pay per shot.
So that's a 3% increase. Considering the general rate of inflation, we're getting off easy.
It's a quality thing, a quality program to have, especially as they predict that this year's flu season will be worse than normal.
I have heard that the flu shot is expected to be a good match this year.
Hopefully. Mr. Mackler, did you have a question?
Not a question, but can we give, it starts tomorrow
It-
in this building. So
It does.
I already signed up. I'm there. 11:05.
9 or 8:40.
Okay. All right, seeing no, oh yeah, please.
So it was noted that the COVID-19 is not going to be included with this. And is there a reason why, even though it's low in perhaps participation, that we shouldn't still offer it? And does that come with a price if we did?
So Sheba Marshall, Human Resources. So it takes a couple things to do that shot. It takes first the state having enough on hand, and then that clinic being scheduled, and then the doctors that have to administer that have to do something special. So there's a special routine to do that. We did reach out to Metro Health, and they don't have enough supply to manage a clinic. They can do employees or individuals coming into their offices. CVS is doing them. You know, there's a ton of places doing them.
Right.
But to schedule a clinic means managing how much you're taking out. And they really have to be assigned to people. You just can't sort of grab a bunch and head out the door with them. And so we didn't have enough time to just organize all of that. We're still looking at it.
Yeah.
Metro Health is reaching out to the Board of Health for us. CVS is looking into their plans. I've already contacted University Hospital, so we've got a bunch of folks looking at how they can do clinics for us, but we couldn't get it together fast enough to continue with our flu clinics, which always happen around this time of the year.
And the flu clinic is highly in demand?
Oh, yeah. Employees started asking us about around the 1st of August, and then September, the communications ramp up, and by the 1st of October, they want to know the dates, so.
Well, what a different environment that we're in, that COVID shots are not in demand, and we're talking about the flu again. I think that's a good
Well, they
environment.
have plenty of options as noted, so good. All right, seeing no further questions, I will make a motion to approve the item. Do I have a second? Second by Councilman Miller. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? The item is approved.
Thank you.
Next item, please.
Next item, BC 2022-628, County Prosecutor recommend an award and enter into an agreement with the Medical Examiner's Office in the amount not to exceed $89,005.54 for research and analysis of ballistic cases effective upon contract signature of all parties through May 31st, 2023.
Ryan Bokach from the Cuyahoga County Prosecutor's Office. This is related to a grant. We were awarded a violent crime reduction grant from the state this year. The Medical Examiner's Office was not eligible to directly apply for that grant. It was limited to law enforcement agencies. They were authorized to be a sub-awardee of the grant, so we partnered with the Medical Examiner's Office for this award. It's a no-match grant, and this is just the MOU reflecting the transfer of funds.
Okay, thank you. Questions from the board? Seeing none, I will make the motion to approve the item. Is there a second? Second by Mr. Mackler. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? The item is approved. Next item.
Next item, BC 2022-629, Department of Public Safety and Justice Services, requesting authority to apply for grant funds from the Ohio Department of Public Safety, Office of Criminal Justice Services, and the amount of $15,446.44 for management of the fiscal year 2022 Stop Violence Against Women Act Administrative Grant Program for the period January 1st, 2023 to March 31st, 2024.
Good morning, Leslie White, Department of Public Safety and Justice Services. So Public Safety and Justice Services is the regional planning unit for Cuyahoga County. So we serve as the fiduciary and the program administrator for the VAWA grant for the block funding. This administrative grant reimburses us for the staff time spent on the block grant.
Okay, thank you, Leslie. Questions from the board? Please, yeah.
I always thought this was 100% covered, but it's 75-25? Has it always been 75-25?
I believe so, yes. I probably have a cheat sheet that tells me so, yes.
Okay, any additional questions? Seeing none, I will make a motion to approve. Is there a second? Seconded by Councilwoman Baker. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? The item is approved. Next
Thank
item.
you.
Next item, BC 2022-630, Department of Health and Human Services, Division of Children and Family Services, submitting an amendment to a contract with Adoption Network Cleveland support services to adoptive, kinship, and foster families for the period April 27, 2020 to June 30th, 2022, to extend the time period to June 30th, 2023, and for additional funds in the amount not to exceed $28,052.
Good morning, Marcos Cortez with Health and Human Services on behalf of Children and Family Services. Again, this is a contract amendment with Adoption Network Cleveland for adoption training and support. The funding for this contract comes from the state, which we were delayed in receiving. Originally, these services were contracted directly by the state, but a change occurred a couple of years ago that required the agency and the regional training centers to enter into those contracts directly with the state's contractors. We already had a contract with this vendor, so we amended, we already had a contract with this vendor for the similar service, so we amended the contract to add these funds.
Okay, thank you, Marcos. Questions from the board? Seeing none, I'll make a motion to approve. Is there a second? Second by Mr. Macular. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? The item is approved. Next item.
Next item, BC 2022-631, Department of Health and Human Services, Community Initiatives Division, Office of Homeless Services, submitting an amendment to a contract with Mental Health Services for Homeless Persons Incorporated, DBA Frontline Service for emergency shelter services for single adults and youth at North Point Transitional Housing located at 1550 Superior Avenue, Cleveland, for the period January 1st, 2021 through August 31st, 2022, to extend the time period to December 31st, 2022, and for additional funds in the amount not to exceed $474,311.
So Erin Reardon, Office of Homeless Services. This is an amendment to our contract with, as it says here, with Frontline for North Point, which is an emergency shelter for youth ages 18 to 24. We are amending this. This is late. We had initially anticipated being able to make an award on an RFP for contracts to start September 1st, but that RFP was delayed. So we are amending this contract to allow for the provider to continue to offer services through the end of the year, and then we will make an award for a contract to start January 1st.
Okay, thank you, Aaron. Questions from the board? Please. Mm-hmm.
So do you anticipate using the $474,000 for the next couple of months?
We do. So we, anytime we do an amendment that's this close to the end of the year, then we meet with the provider to ensure that they have a plan to spend down that budget so that we're not allocating funds that they don't use.
And will some of this be used for services rendered but not paid, that they ran out of money, or is this for today on?
This would be for September 1st on, so it would be for some services paid.
So they're waiting to
already.
be paid?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Additional questions? Seeing none, I'll make a motion to approve the item. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by, geez, there was three of them. Lee Tucker. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? The item is approved. Next item.
Next item, BC 2022-632, Department of Health and Human Services, Community Initiatives Division, Office of Homeless Services, submitting an to a contract with Mental Health Services for Homeless Persons Incorporated, DBA Frontline Service, for coordinated intake services for individuals and families in connection with the Emergency Solutions Grant Program for the period September 1st, 2021 through August 31st, 2022, to extend the time period to January 31st, 2023, and for additional funds in the amount not to exceed $400,000.
Erin Reardon, Office of Homeless Services again. So this is a contract with Frontline Services to provide coordinated entry, which is a single point of contact for anybody entering the homeless services continuum. So anybody who needs shelter, any kind of services to avoid homelessness, they would contact coordinated entry, and Frontline operates that service. Again, we were intending to make an award starting September 1st, but we were delayed in putting out the RFP. So we are using this to continue that program. And the reason that this one goes through the January 31st of 2023 is because there's still additional outstanding HUD funding that has to come and be attached to this grant because it goes retroactive to February 1st. That's how late HUD is in some of their awards.
Okay, Erin, thank you again. Questions from the board? Please.
So again, 400,000 is going to be used to the end of January, then you go back out for an RFP?
Yes, and the RFP has already been issued, and it's
Okay.
closed and everything, and
That's
we're starting to make awards.
And the services have been waiting for their money since September, and again, they will be reimbursed?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, great. Final questions? Seeing none, I will make a motion to approve. Is there a second? Seconded by Councilman Miller. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? The item is approved. Next
Thank you.
item.
Next item, BC 2022-633, Department of Public Works recommended to amend Board of Control approval, which amended various Board of Control approvals, which authorized an alternative procurement process resulting in purchase orders to various providers for medical, surgical, and animal care services for the period February 1st, 2017 through December 31st, 2022, to extend the time period to June 30th, 2023, and for additional funds in the amount not to exceed $200,000.
Good morning, Melanie Say, Department of Public Works. This procurement allows the kennel to utilize the best veterinarian or vet service in times of medical urgency for the kennel. Welcome to answer any questions.
Thank you, Melanie. Are there questions from the board? Seeing no questions, I will make a motion. Oh, Mr. Meckler, please.
Melanie, what's the plan after June 30th?
So we'll always need something like this in place, but not at the amount that it is right now. We are currently negotiating contracts with multiple vendors to put some extra services in place, but there'll always be a need for this contract because some veterinarians or vet hospitals have varying hours. So this allows them to be able to tap into a big network just in case one of the vets or facilities are not available.
I also asked them this, these 2017 ones, let's start a fresh one if we're gonna do it.
Yes, we will.
So that
It'll
was-
be a new effort.
Additional questions? Seeing none, I'll make a motion to approve the item. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Paul Porter. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Item approved. Moving on to consent agenda.
Consent agenda items are BC 2022-634 through BC 2022-636.
Okay, board members. A couple items here. We do have members of the public defender if there's questions. Minor changes. Are there any questions? Do we have any questions? Okay, seeing no questions, then I will make a motion to approve today's consent agenda items as listed. Is there a second? Second by Councilman Miller. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? The consent agenda is approved. Moving on to other business.
There is no other business,
Is there any public comment?
no public comment.
At this time, I will make a motion to adjourn. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Miller. All in favor to adjourn, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? We're adjourned. Thank you.